pretty disturbing case of attempted that sparked outrage on the Cape. A 15-year-old boy was sentenced today for his role in what prosecutors called a racially motivated attack. Our NBC 10's Mary Marcos joining us live in Barnstable with the story. Mary, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Sheeran was sentenced to 30 months probation, 720 hours of community service. And while his lawyer doesn't deny the attack itself, he claims it had nothing to do with race.
Mr. Sheeran, do you have anything you'd like to say?
John Sheeran walked out of court a free teen after taking a plea deal, ending his attemptees.
Unfortunately, my feeling was that I always wanted to try the case. I always have great faith in juries, but it was too risky.
The 15-year-old leaves behind an ankle monitor that's been keeping him in Chatham for over a year, as well as the chance for a jury to clear his name.
These people would have cost this kid, who was 15 years old, they come up to him on the streets and call him a racist and harass him, basically, and without knowing anything of the facts.
A black youth told investigators that Sheeran repeatedly dunked his head underwater at Goose Pond in July of 2023. Court documents show that when he said he couldn't breathe, another child called him George Floyd.
There was no racial intent here whatsoever, unfortunately, for obvious reasons. It took on a life of its own in that regard, but you have three young individuals, and what happened, happened.
Sheeran's family was with him in Barnstable Juvenile Court for the sentencing, but they didn't want to talk on camera. His lawyer, Kevin Reddington, says they're relieved.
He can go about his life and finish with his schooling. He's got a great job in the summertime, working on the boats, going to Nantucket back and forth, and he'll have a normal life.
Now, in addition to the probation and the community service, Sheeran has been ordered not to contact the victim, to write a letter of apology, and take a course on respect and resolving conflict. Live in Barnstable, Mary Marcos, NBC 10 Boston.
Peace and blessings. Peace and blessings. All praises, yet and still, to the Most High. Can you believe that? 15-year-old John Sheeran, who was 14 at the time that he deliberately attempted on multiple occasions to drown his 14-year-old quote-unquote friend in Goose Pond in Chatham, Massachusetts, has been given 30 months probation, 720 hours of community service, and made to write a letter of apology and take a class on conflict resolution. And you hear his lawyer right after they said that while John and his friend was trying to drown the young black man, one of the friends laughed and called him George Floyd, after calling him the N-word and boy. Yet and still, this delusional lawyer says it wasn't racially motivated. Can anyone watching this video, both black and white, really believe that? Really believe that? And once again, this judgment, he pled guilty about a month ago, and his sentence was just given 3 days ago on February the 5th. Now, again, this happened in Chatham, Massachusetts, Barksdale, you saw, in which the population is 96.5% white and 1.9% black. And you heard the lawyer talking about, well, I would have want to try it, but I don't really trust the juries. I can imagine the racial makeup of that jury. But this child was facing the attempted M-word. And the reason that his name was released, even though he's a juvenile, because he was being charged as a youthful offender, which means he could have gotten an adult sentence. But as you know, the scales of justice tilt ever so slightly when the defendant is white and the victim is black. Now, they said that these 3 children, whom the black child mistakenly thought that these guys was his friend, went to Goose Pond. And the young black boy was riding a bike, and the white kids told him, hey, ride your bike into the lake, knowing the kid couldn't swim. Now, this black kid probably tried to get along and try to be accepted by these white friends who didn't want to accept him. Was like, nah, I can't. It's my brother's bike. So then they say, okay, well, that's when they started throwing rocks at him. They started throwing rocks at him, calling him the N-word and boy. Now, at the age of 14, I knew. My classmates knew. My white classmates knew that you don't call a black person boy. So you can't tell me that this young man, this young teen, this young animal, let's call him what he is, didn't know what he was doing was wrong and racially motivated. Nevertheless, the young black man still wanted to be in with them. So he couldn't swim, and he told him that, so he put on a life jacket. He put on a life jacket, waded out into the water, and that is when, once again, they started antagonizing him again, calling him names. Then the white boy, John Sheeran, went up to him and put his head underwater 4 or 5 times. And when the young black man told him he couldn't breathe, the other man, the other young white child, who was not named, not arrested evidently, called him George Floyd. I can't breathe, George Floyd. I can't breathe, George Floyd. Yet and still this lawyer says that there was nothing racial about it. Who do you think you're talking to? Tell me in the comments. My white viewers, I know I got y'all need to chime in, because this is what we're talking about. The cognitive dissonance when it's definitely racially motivated and people say, well, everything is not about race. Can anyone please, my number, 919-587-7782. And I know y'all watching. Please tell me that this is not about race. And then I'll just give up with you. I won't even, try to convince you of situations like this. And then they said that the children afterwards, when they couldn't get his head under, they were swimming under the water trying to pull him down in the water. So much so that the young brother had to call out for help. And as you see in the next auto, a bystander had to jump in, Baywatch time, and come save the young brother. And then the young brother reported it 2 days later. Told the police the same thing that I'm telling you. And the young man, as you see, he was arrested, put on an ankle monitor. As you heard them talking in the news clip, the ankle monitor has been holding him in Chatham. Now he can go on with his life. He has a bright future. He has a job working on and you can almost see the arrogance. Go back and watch that news clip. You see the arrogance of that young man. Say, I knew I wasn't going to jail. My daddy knows the judge. That is the definition of racial bias, whatever you want to call it. And I just can't even imagine what happened or what is going through the mind of that young black man. I hope he doesn't hang around his young white friends at Goose Pond anymore. I would hate to see that. But just look at this. Take a listen to this second article right here. This is going to give you more details and let you know that, yes, it was racially motivated, unlike that lawyer tried to say.
New details tonight about a suspected racially motivated attack in Chatham back in July. A 14-year-old is still in custody tonight as the investigation into what exactly happened at Goose Pond continues. As we find our NBC 10's Eli Rosenberg with the latest on these really new disturbing details. Eli.
And Priscilla, this is a very detailed report. The victim stating what he says happened to him out here at Goose Pond in mid-July. The suspect in all of this, just 14 years old. And those out here today say they cannot believe something like this would happen here. In a remote area, a popular summer hotspot for those looking to cool off. But now, disturbing details just released about an incident that occurred here back in July. Court paperwork saying this started when the victim, who is black, told police he was invited to swim at this pond on July 19th. He added after he got here, the victim telling his friends, who are white, he didn't know how to swim, so he put on a life jacket. Investigators adding the suspect, identified in court paperwork as 14-year-old John Sheeran, started throwing rocks at him, calling him a racial slur, and threatened to beat him up. Sheeran's name is being released even though he's a juvenile, because he's being charged as a youthful offender. Sheeran, according to the police report, later repeatedly dunking the victim in the pond and swam underneath him to try and pull him underwater. The victim adding he couldn't breathe, and another teen, quote, started laughing and called me George Floyd, obviously making fun of me and showing no remorse. It all eventually ended when the victim yelled for help and someone here on the beach swam out and stopped it. Sheeran, the 14-year-old suspect, was in court late last week and has stated he's being charged as a youthful offender, which means even though he is a juvenile, his court proceedings are public and he could potentially be facing an adult sentence. Those at Goose Pond this afternoon in disbelief.
Anything is possible in today's world that we live in, but kind of hard to believe for here. If this kid is the bad egg that they say he is, good to have him off the street.
And at last check, the suspect here remains in juvenile custody after that hearing held late last week. Meanwhile, according to the DA's office, the next court hearing for the suspect is scheduled for September 13th. I'm in Chatham, Eli Rosenberg, NBC 10 Boston.
So that happened. That article was, a couple of months or weeks after what happened. But there they get real descriptive on what happened. So I don't know if you go back to that first clip, how in the world can that lawyer with a straight face say that it wasn't racially motivated? That is the issue here. When people, most importantly white people, fail to acknowledge clear-cut situations that need to be addressed. This young man needs to be in jail till he turns 18. Just as if the roles were reversed. I had many friends in junior high school who committed crimes of less severity and went to juvenile detention till they were 18, till they were 21. You're talking about trying to take someone's life. And you're walking out of the court with your mom and your dad, looking like a preppy, privileged kid. That is what we were saying when we talk about this injustice, racist system that allows white people, white children to get away with criminal acts of that type of severity. And as soon as I wipe my butt sideways, as somebody said, I'm getting a life sentence. Y'all tell me, is this America? Is this how it should be? Is anything wrong with this system? Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments. 919-587-7782. Peace and blessings.